I'm David John Sponheim, and I support this message. I believe that I am the best person for the job of President of the United States. My unique talents give me the ability to be assertive and diplomatic at the same time. I'm a person who will spike the conversation, who will get politics rolling and stimulate new questions and new answers to our current political dilemma facing our nation. I believe I have a keen understanding of the economy and how to improve where we're at relative to other nations around the world. I believe that our goal at America's Third Party was to create a very strong platform in which would propel the American people forward with new opportunities and a new possibility of creating a better nation, a cleaner environment, and less war. I believe that my personal talents of inciting discussion and instigating argument is a rare quality no one in America possesses besides myself. I'm more than willing to walk into the foray and create a controversy in order to stimulate growth and ultimately communication that will lead to answers. So if you're looking for an average American like myself who has an above average IQ, who understands the dilemma we are in, I am your person. I am your potential presidential candidate. Now, if you believe that our nation is okay the way it's going with the two-party system, then you haven't really made that decision to step away from the foray of averageness and do something that can truly stimulate change, the real change in our country. If you haven't adopted the concept of a third party, then you haven't quite grasped what I'm all about. I am starting this plan under the third party banner because it is the only way we can separate moneyed interests from who and what they are currently working for and get a presidential candidate who's unviable, like myself. Question number 1. What do you think are the most important steps government can take to promote job creation? I believe that this nation can build jobs, that the government is responsible for creating jobs. One of the best things we can do is get people a home, a chance to own a home. And we've created a plan called the Homestead Renewal Plan, where we buy up condemned properties and have people fix up and renovate those properties and turn them into homes that those same people that work on them can own. This will create millions of jobs, living wage jobs, where people will actually get ahead of their debt and get ahead in this world. Another plan we have is the solar rooftop program, which will ultimately create millions of solar rooftop situations for people who don't have any way of paying their electric bill. This is a solution that can actually pay for itself over time. You see, the energy that the solar rooftop saves on your electric bill will actually go to pay the infrastructure of the solar panels themselves. Now, our nation can mass produce solar panels and create a better solution for our nation with this new technology. 85% efficiency is possible. There are other areas and other innovations that I support that will create many jobs. Windmill production, both small and large wind turbine production, will increase jobs by as much as 2 million per year. We believe that our goal at this time, at this juncture, is to salvage the working population that's sitting there waiting for a job. 26 million people. And those people can get to work right away with a lot of these plans that I'm offering. Question number 2. How would you reform federal taxes? The first thing I would do to reform federal taxes is to urge a fair, flat tax initiative. Congress will need to pass this, but the goal is to lower the taxes for the average American. If you make less than $100,000, you would pay absolutely no flat tax. The flat tax would kick in right after that $100,000 mark is reached. And we would also get additional sales tax revenue, 10% tax, from people who are currently buying things. Things that are less than $10,000 would be taxed. Anything beyond $10,000 would not be taxed. So it would encourage investment in various products in America. Additionally, I believe the IRS could be removed and gotten rid of. It's costing our nation $3 billion a month to run the IRS, and that's a low average. The cost is ridiculous, and we're charging people taxes to pay for people to collect taxes. And how many of us have been bothered by the IRS who make no money? They're wasting their time. This is a bureaucracy that has been created that is leading us nowhere. So that's one of the integral parts of my tax reform plan, is to, if not reduce, eliminate the IRS. The next question is, do you believe corporations should be more heavily regulated, even if it means higher compliance costs? The question of regulating corporations is a tricky one. For the past umpteen dozen years, our nation has continued to over-regulate corporations to the point where they can't even function in their own country. Corporations that make profits overseas are taxed 35% on those profits when they bring that money back into this country. So we're essentially telling companies to not do business in this country and to keep your profits overseas, which is ridiculous. I would say lowering the amount of regulations on corporations at that level is smart. Encouraging investment and incentivizing investment is the key. If we were to give these corporations free rein to become monopolies, however, that can be a huge strain on our economy. When corporations use their power to control both distribution and production, this could ultimately disable our economy, especially the free market economy that we have grown to love in America. But right now, overregulation is killing the free market. So I urge very strong anti-monopoly laws, but very few regulations on small business and small corporations. The fourth question is, how do you propose we reduce the national debt, and how much should the national debt be considered in economic recovery plans? The national debt is perhaps an abstract notion in the minds of economists. The national debt is something that only the Federal Reserve really understands. We have a problem there. The Federal Reserve does not answer to the U.S. government. It only has to report domestic earnings to the Government Accounting Office. Because of that, the Federal Reserve is the loose question when it comes to our national debt. We have to start looking at what our real national debt is. And once we determine that and get the kind of transparency we need from the Federal Reserve, then we'll be able to analyze what we can do to pay back that debt. Our debt, our trade deficit with China grows by $250 billion a year and could reach close to $2 trillion by the end of this decade. The idea of paying that back is possible. We have a tremendous amount of food production in this country, and they have a need to buy grain and wheat. So the possibility of paying back the Chinese trade deficit debt with our agricultural production is very strong. But there's debt to countries as long-standing as our debt to England that doesn't seem to be clear. And if we don't understand what that debt is, it will dog us with interest payments. Now, I'm not going to encourage this nation to pay back interest payments on debt we don't even know where it came from. I'm going to find out what that debt is and erase the debt that we no longer should possess. During the restructuring of our nation, we will have to head toward a new concept of what debt is. We can't keep acquiring debt, and I support the pay-as-you-go plan, where we actually pay out what we earn in. Currently, we're spending twice what we earn, and that's got to stop. What role should the federal government play in the healthcare industry? Is healthcare a right? We are perhaps the only country in the industrialized world that doesn't have a socialized healthcare plan. What we have guarantees people healthcare, but it also can potentially bankrupt them, medically bankrupt them, and ultimately take their home and everything they worked for. Therein lies the biggest flaw in our healthcare system. Because we don't have a public option, a national opt-in healthcare plan like America's Third Party proposes will provide that. It's a non-mandatory plan. People who want to buy into it pay as low as $50 a month, with $20 additional for every child. This gives them full health coverage. Doesn't carry all the extras like chiropractic or holistic medicine, but it does cover the basics. And this will ultimately be a great backbone to our healthcare solution in America. I believe that Obamacare must be rescinded, that we must move forward with a brand new plan, of lowering the cost of healthcare. Currently, we aren't doing that. We allow healthcare costs to rise indiscriminate to how much money the American people have, or how much money they truly need at that level in the healthcare industry. I believe that healthcare costs could be limited, and we can still maintain a free market approach toward the private healthcare industry. Providing a public option will only be a solution, a bypass. And we have a very strong plan called the Mobile Medical Unit Solution, which will provide mobile medical units in every city in America that will virtually triage and provide preventative health care to people in need at a time when they can afford it. This will require copay and will ultimately pay for itself over time, not being a drain on our government's coffer. Sixth question. What do you think is driving the rapid growth of healthcare costs, and how would you slow it down? Would you support putting some kind of cap on the government spends on Medicare? I don't believe we should cap Medicare. I believe we should control the costs, the rising costs of the Medicare providers. I believe that that's a better solution. To limit the amount of funds that we put into a program only hurts the end user. When Barack Obama got rid of $300 billion in Medicare Advantage, when he supported and pushed for his Obamacare, it actually is going to hurt us in the long run, because older people are going to get sicker as a result of no Medicare Advantage funds. This is not something I would do. I would instead target the healthcare industry for lowering costs and provide more competition in the form of public doctors. Bringing public doctors into the healthcare industry will lower the cost of healthcare dramatically. Currently, the average doctor in England makes $160,000 a year. Our nation offers doctors a lot more than that, and that's not something the American people can afford, and it's certainly not something our Medicare and Medicaid funds can possibly continue paying into. So definitely lowering the cost of Medicare is not the solution. Lowering the cost of health care is. Number 7, should the government require all citizens have health care insurance? If so, what is your thought about a premium-supported model similar to the Federal Employees Health Benefits Program? A health care alternative is necessary, but forcing people to carry health care insurance is unconstitutional. There's no precedent for it. We can't force anyone to pay anything legally. So what I urge us to do is offer a public option. The National Opt-in Health Care Insurance Plan that we are supporting offers people that solution. And when they pay into it, they get guaranteed coverage. This is something that would be a solution that would offer 70 million people who are currently uninsured a very affordable insurance plan that would carry them the rest of their life. 85% of all medical bankruptcies actually occur with people that have health insurance. This makes us really question how health insurance providers are being fleeced by the health insurance industry. The ultimate problem is when someone has a really good health care plan, they get charged a lot. That charge could be different for any person walking in the door. There's no other industry besides the healthcare industry that can pretty much charge whatever to whoever they want when they walk in the door. So a certain amount of standardization in the costs of healthcare is key, and providing a national opt-in healthcare plan is critical, but it can't be mandatory. We can't force people to do this. Education. Why aren't our K-12 schools preparing graduates to compete in the global economy? And what would you do as a president to lift their performance? As you know, the 10th Amendment ensures that states have the rights and control over education. We cannot mandate what a state does with the funds that we give them, but we have been doing that. And under the No Child Left Behind Act, they have told states that they have to test students. They didn't even provide them tests. They had to pay for their own tests in each state. Some states opted out, like Utah. Many states are asking, why have these unfunded mandates when they simply need to focus on their needs in that particular state? Well, we've got a better solution. We believe that creating rich internet content and rich learning packages and kits like robotic kits, solar power kits, wind power kits for kids to learn would be the purpose of the Federal Department of Education. We could downsize the Department of Education by as much as 50% and still keep the staff that can teach and can actually develop tools that the states can use. And these states would not be obligated to use these kits or tools or online learning experiences. It would all be up to the states to use them. This gives the power and control over education back to the states, but provides rich content for the states to use at the federal level. We also support a solution to create incentives to get kids to learn, inspiring them to get their intrinsic motivation up. And one of those incentives is the It Pays to Be Good program, where kids get points that lead to scholarships that will go toward higher education or perhaps even starting a business when they graduate from high school. The next question is, why do you think college costs keep rising? Are students getting their money's worth? And what would you do to slow down cost growth? College costs keep rising because professors keep getting more and more money. The private investment strategy of universities and colleges around this country is about profit, not learning. And that has eroded the very process by which kids can get an education and go on to get a meaningful career and a job. 85% of America doesn't like their job. That's not a good sign. And when students have to pay $200,000 for an education, a four-year education, and graduate in debt, that's telling them to become wage slaves, which is not a good sign. Our country can do better. We can actually offer Pell Grants double the size that they are today, but fixed with fixed tuition rates. So any college or university that's cashing those Pell Grants has to guarantee fixed tuition rates that are affordable for the average student. And they can't raise those rates without the agreement of the federal government. That is one solution. Another solution would be lower cost online reading opportunities, where e-reading opportunities are a lot less expensive than the actual textbooks. Right now, it costs almost the same to download a book as it is to buy one, and that is ridiculous. The cost savings to the publishing company is huge. Why wouldn't we pass that on to students? So an overall comprehensive approach toward lowering college costs is the key, not allowing it to continue to skyrocket. Number 10, what would you do to improve workforce development and job training opportunities for the U.S. worker? Currently, unemployment insurance compensation has cost this nation a huge amount of money, nearly $500 billion under Obama. We haven't tied any of that money to education plans, and that's a big problem. In Atlanta, Georgia, they're experimenting with providing some of the training courses necessary to get people who are on unemployment out of unemployment, which is a great solution. We have a plan to create a 6-week to 6-month training module in many different areas for the community colleges around the country, so that students can go in and within 6 weeks to 6 months get a certification that will guarantee them a job. This is a partnership between the public and private sector that will lead to numerous solutions for our unemployed. And this is a solution that hasn't been broached in any other way. We will integrate it with our solar panel installation program, a 6-week training course, and then you should be able to earn $20 an hour immediately after that. Or perhaps our emergency medical trainers, the mobile medical units we'll need, will actually be able to get an education in 6 months and be working, making $25 an hour to start in the healthcare industry. Other ideas would be programming, IT, web development, graphic arts, you name it. All of these could be certified and wouldn't provide the barrier that we currently are facing for college students to get a 4-year education in order to get a job. Okay, and 11. Is U.S. energy independence a feasible goal? And if so, how would you achieve it? How would you reduce our reliance on foreign oil? Clearly, our reliance on foreign oil has become a huge problem. Back in the 1970s, most of our oil was generated here, 75% of it coming from American oil wells. Now, it's quite the opposite. 77% of our oil is imported from other countries. All of that can change, but we need to start looking at where we have a tremendous amount of oil. Now, the Green River Valley in Wyoming and Colorado is the richest amount of shale oil in the world, larger than the oil supplies in the entire Middle East. And we need to start harnessing that oil using geothermal forces, tapping into the geothermal energy using that to send steam into the ground, which then creates sweet crude right out through this internal refinery that we can create right in the landmass. Other solutions include leveraging more on renewable energy solutions like wind turbines and small wind technology, as well as the idea of creating solar panels and distributing them throughout the entire nation on solar rooftops. All of that could actually help us by as much as 30% to our energy grid. We could additionally solve the heating oil crisis by providing lower cost energy through electricity. So the more we beef up our own renewable energy sources, the more likely we'll have lower cost energy at our electric plug, so that all of us can save money on that and then lean less on fuel oil, which obviously creates greenhouse gases and doesn't help the environment. We also believe that our coal supply could be converted into gasification, which would create a liquid fuel, a diesel fuel. And adding to that, legalization of marijuana would open the way toward creating hempylene, a form of biodiesel, which would also be integrated into the diesel supply. All of that would help us become energy independent in a very short period of time. Next question. What steps will you take to make this nation's growing energy demand more sustainable? One of the first things I'd like to do is take our existing ownership of General Motors, which is down to 31%. But still, we could use that to create the U.S. Auto Corporation, producing one model of a vehicle that can get 100 miles per gallon, plug in the wall overnight, and have a charge that'll last 100 miles and cost less than $15,000. Not only is this possible, it's a guaranteed success for this nation because we would get money back. Every taxpayer would see a savings in their taxes every single year in the event the sales zoom. Now, we could export these cars around the world. We could offer a lease with an option to buy plan that's affordable to the American people, and the American government would get behind the largest energy saving solution ever to come about. This will actually lower our energy footprint. Everyone will get 100 miles per gallon that wants these vehicles, and our nation will use less fuel, which will give us the chance of becoming energy independent as well. In addition to renewable energy fuels, do you believe natural gas and nuclear energy should play a larger role in the American energy mix? Obviously, if you drive down the road and breathe fumes from other cars, you know how obnoxious that is. Well, that has led to a higher incidence of childhood asthma, not to mention emphysema and lung cancer. So of course, we want to get the emissions down and lower our carbon footprint on the planet. This is something that our nation could do as a way of showing other nations this is how it's done. So reducing carbon emissions is important, but mandating that industry and the auto industry have lower emissions has ultimately cost our nation a tremendous amount of energy costs. You see, we don't allow some of the more efficient vehicles from Europe to come into our country because they don't meet our carbon footprint emissions test coming out of California. California is unfortunately, being the largest state economy, the one dictating which cars come into this country. Well, we need more cars that get 70 miles per gallon. We need those vehicles regardless of their emissions. We also can solve the emissions problems with another technique, eliminating particulates at the muffler. Now, I have never revealed this information, but I am developing technology that will eliminate carbon particulates coming out of the mufflers of both diesel and gasoline-driven vehicles. This is a new technology that creates scrubbers that will scrub the air as it's coming out of your exhaust pipe. Do you know that 85% of the fuel going into your vehicle goes out your exhaust pipe? That's got to stop. So we'll work on new innovations to stop that and develop these technologies and make them affordable for the average American. The next question is, that's it, 14. What circumstances justify U.S. military intervention? Do you think America should continue to play a leading role in world affairs or lay down some of those responsibilities? Well, I am a non-interventionist candidate for president. I believe that our country doesn't need to be involved in other countries' affairs, even if there are tragedies going on. I believe that we could use our air power much more effectively in any situation to intimidate a leader into complying with the UN directives that are laid out. I don't support initial strikes like NATO against Libya. I don't support the concept that we should be used by other nations or the UN as the policeman to the world. Our nation has been used as that overseer, and we have ultimately hurt a lot of people in the process. I must remind you that over 4 million Southeast Asians died during the Vietnam War. 58,000 men and women died during the Vietnam War. The Iraq War, Gulf War I and II, all claimed many, many lives that were unnecessary. We need to establish the advantage in regions that we currently are controlling and maintain that advantage by pursuing a policy of containment. The same policy that Harry S. Truman proposed right after World War II can be used again. And we can advance it using my concept of weapons-free safe zones, guaranteeing safe haven for people who are fleeing sectarian violence or insurgent activity. These ideas are profiled on our website at America's Third Party. Number 15. Is America's enormous trade deficit with China a problem? How would you boost U.S. exports and encourage China and other countries to buy more from us? Our trade deficit with China is manageable. As large as it is, $250 billion per year, we believe that an open and negotiated trade agreement with China would help our nation prosper as well as China. We believe that once we gain a certain amount of parity in this relationship, we'll begin to pay back our trade deficit in larger ways. We have a tremendous amount of agricultural output in America. We can provide grain and rice to China that they desperately need. They're facing a drought. Ford Motor Company just announced that they're doubling the number of Ford dealerships in China coming up by 2015. All of these goals are part of what I believe would be an interchange of shared values. Economic growth can occur when two countries embrace this way. But if we have reckless imports of bad quality products into our country, we have got to put a stop to that. And I support an ecological tariff on any country, whether it's China or India or Pakistan, importing goods into our country. If they don't comply with basic principles of clean environment and human rights, we will have to charge them a 15% tariff on all imports. This will level the playing field and begin to give us a better chance at the bargaining table with countries like China. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much, and I do hope you support me at www.tinyurl.com/votedjs. Thank you.
Check us out at americasthirdparty.com.